Hi guys, I want to talk about Kingdom Come, I want to talk about bugs, I want to talk about mods, and I want to talk about hardcore mode. I have noticed a number of people in the comment section of my videos getting a little confused as to which of those is causing whatever it is they are seeing on screen. However, before we begin, I know this video has the title Kingdom Come and Bugs in there somewhere. The words Kingdom Come and Bugs in the title, but if you've not been watching my Let's Play and you think therefore I'm saying this game is filled with bugs, do not think that. This game has the occasional bug, the occasional glitch, or at least for me, and none of them have been game breaking, none of them have ruined the experience in the slightest. In fact, some of them have even been mildly amusing. This is not a video to complain about the bugs at all. I'm of the opinion that the bugs I've found so far are perfectly reasonable in a game like this. It's an amazing game. I'm having an amazing experience. I think it's a very bold and brave game. It's done a lot of things that a lot of people probably would have thought ill-advised. They've gone truly old school and tried to make things very, very realistic, and I'm just generally massively impressed with this game, and I'm enjoying the game more than I've enjoyed a game in a long time. So please do not take the fact that I'm talking about bugs as an indication of negativity. What I want to do is talk about the fact that some people seem to think that the reason I'm getting these bugs is I'm using mods. That is almost certainly not the case. Every single glitch or bug that I have found, I have checked up online and found a lot of other people reporting the same bug, many of them not modding their game. In fact, most of them not modding their game. So no bug that I've had, those you've seen and those you're going to see in future episodes, have been reported only from people with mods. So that is almost certainly not the issue. And that shouldn't really be a surprise. If you check the mod list that I'm using, most of them, there's not actually very many of them, most of them are minor UI tweaks, which would almost certainly not affect the engine the way, you know, some of the bugs have appeared. In fact, the only thing I'm using that doesn't just tweak the UI is the Disable Head Bob mod, which does tweak the animation for the player. I'm not sure whether that could cause other bugs. I don't see how it could cause any of the problems I have found. I really don't. But more importantly, I know all of the problems I've found have been found by people who were not using any mods. So it's not mods causing the bugs. So please, you know, and I have actually tried uninstalling the mods and starting a new game and seeing if those bugs are still there. Things like the UI bug in the inventory and trading and that sort of thing. And it is not the mods, okay? Another thing that I want to mention is I've seen a lot of people think that me removing the UI elements is going to make the game impossible to play. I have actually not removed that many UI elements. This is a new game. This is a new game on normal mode with all of the mods that I am using. And as you can see, you still have the compass, you still have the map marker, you still have the health bar, you still have the the stamina bar. I have only removed, with mods, I've only removed the background for those elements. If you look at the compass, there's no background. If you look at the health and stamina, there's no background. That's all I have removed with one mod. The actual bars and the compass markers that you are seeing now, those get removed if you play in hardcore mode. Those are removed in hardcore mode. So people telling me, oh, you should turn those back on, the game is going to be a lot harder if you don't. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. You play in hardcore mode, you don't have the advantage of map markers, you have to navigate yourself, and you have to judge health and stamina by other things. And I think the game does a very, very good job of letting you know you're in trouble. There's been a few times where I thought I was a lot more damaged than I actually was, and so perhaps I panicked a little more than I would have had I been able to see the stamina bar. But I think that's okay, to be honest. But you get a lot of visual effects if you're weak, if your health is low, if your stamina's down, and the game will let you know. So it's more than playable. I have actually played a lot further than I've posted so far, and I've had no real trouble, as far as I know. Of course, I can't really compare it to anything because I've not played the normal game. The things the mods have removed are the background to the compass. You know, the little box around it? And the background to the stamina and health. The thing is, they don't actually add anything to the game as far as I can see. There's no useful information on them. And for hardcore mode, it is just the map anyway. Because you don't have things like the north, the south, the west, the east indicator on the compass, and because you don't have quest markers unless you're right on top of the thing you found. The quest marker really is almost useless apart from sort of a little fine-tuning once you're in the exact neighborhood. Honestly, the mods I'm using are not affecting it. Now, there is one mod I'm using that does have some effect on the game, and that is the mod that removes the center dot reticle, or reticule, depending on how you want to say it. Now, that does actually, I think, make it a little harder when picking things up, picking flowers, because it may be a little harder to target them without that dot. I don't know because I've not played the game with the dot, but I can imagine it might be a bit easier with that dot, tiny bit. However, some people have suggested archery was going to be a lot harder with the dot removed. The thing is, this game removes the dot even on normal mode, even unmodded, when you take your bow out. If you're playing and you've got the dot while you're shooting your bow, you're using a mod or a console command. By default, the game turns that off, so archery is no harder in hardcore mode at all. So, that is it. The mods are not causing the glitches, and believe it or not, they are almost certainly having very little effect on how difficult the game is for me, beyond making it a tiny bit harder to pick flowers. Maybe. Beyond that, everything that's been changed on the UI is hardcore mode. On the subject of hardcore mode, I know there's quite a few people watching my playthrough who've never actually played that mode. They've played the normal mode and may be a little confused as to what the hell it is. It basically, you play in the game on a slightly more difficult mode. I say slightly, it's not that much more difficult, I think, again, not having played normal mode. Combat is tougher, you take more damage apparently, blows are more severe, so, you know, you're probably in more danger when fighting. But most of the difficulty is like almost organizational. Again, no user interface hints, map markers, health, stamina. You can't fast travel, things like that. So you've got a lot more sort of very immersive, traditional, old school RPG experience. The survival elements are a little more intense because eating is more important. I had a lot of people say, oh my god, please eat at the pots, you don't need to buy food. Well, in hardcore mode, you do. You can probably survive by eating nothing but the pots in normal mode, according to a lot of people in the comments section. Again, I cannot confirm that. You cannot do that in hardcore mode. Pots give you very little nourishment and they take energy. It's not a very efficient way to eat. So you need to buy food anyway, or you probably won't survive. At least I don't think you could, even if you eat every single pot you come across. And you end up losing a lot of energy. I have found it a lot better to be eating certain foods and, believe it or not, drinking certain beverages. But I don't want to spoil too much for future episodes. The eating and drinking situation is a little tougher, as is repairing your gear and trading items. You have to spend a lot more money repairing your gear, and you make less money when selling items. I think those are the differences. So it's a lot harder to become stinking rich which is something a few people did notice in the first few episodes because I was having trouble making enough money to do the initial quest. So I ended up selling cheese and apples. So it's little things like that. And these are all little things that I love and adore. Oh, there's also a negative trait system. You have to choose a couple of negative traits. I have chosen the somnambulant, I think it is, sleepwalker. When I sleep, there's a chance I wake up some random place. I also took tapeworm, which means I have to eat even more, which in the early stages is somewhat problematic. But you've got traits that will make it so you bleed more or take more damage from falling. You can actually take them all if you want. So that's the real difference in hardcore mode. It does make the game slightly harder in combat, but out of combat it just makes it more old school, and I would say it gives it more of a survival feel. Oh, there is one area in which combat is a little more difficult in hardcore mode because of the UI elements being removed. The combat indicator does get removed, and that could be important if you're used to playing with it. Now, I've not used that since I tried this game in its alpha form a long time ago, but apparently it also has a little more information now, including an icon that tells you when you can block. You don't have that in hardcore mode, and that will probably make a difference. You will need to watch your opponent and see when he's going to attack, and then block accordingly. This means you have to focus on your opponent a lot more than you might in the normal mode. So in normal mode, you might be able to say, have your opponent in the center of the screen and be looking off at another opponent where the sheep are. Maybe he's firing a bow and you're concentrating on him, but you should still be able to see the icon that tells you when to block. At least I think so. I can't say for sure because I've not actually tried it. But in hardcore mode, you cannot do that. If you are looking off to the side of the screen rather than the guy that's in front of you, you're probably not going to see the exact moment he pulls his arm back, and you're probably not going to time the block as well. Again, it will depend how good your peripheral vision is, but usually in combat, you tend to be focused very much on one thing at a time. So be aware of that. I find combat against multiple opponents to be insanely tough compared to one-on-one combat, which is really realistic. In one-on-one combat, I actually feel comfortable. I wouldn't say I'm brilliant at it. I don't want to get cocky, but I feel comfortable. The instant we get 2 opponents, I get less comfortable. Once we get to 3 and 4 opponents, I'm beginning to have some trouble. Even if it's a bunch of badly armed peasants and I'm running around in really good armour, they can make my life miserable just by sheer numbers alone. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that they just keep flanking you, and you're constantly trying to avoid being flanked, and you're constantly trying to look to the side, which is something you can't actually do in this game because it locks on combat, even if you don't want it to. And so I end up not focusing on the guy in front of me and not blocking at the right moment. But then the people at the side, you can't even see, or you can't block them anyway. So life does become a lot tougher. So honestly, I don't think it makes too much difference. The only real difference is in hardcore mode, when you're doing one-on-one combat, you will have to pay attention to his movement. If you've got a couple of people fighting you and you're spreading your attention, you won't get a nice little icon to help you out when the guy in front of you attacks. That will make life a little more difficult. It also makes combos harder because of the lack of the UI, but I actually want to make a separate video about that because that's a bit more of an in-depth issue. I've been having some trouble knowing where I'm attacking from because I've assumed it's attacking from one direction and then it didn't, And I think a lot of that would be easier if I was using the combat indicator. As I said, I'll make another video regarding combos so as to not drag this one out too much. But there you have it. That is it. The bugs I am having are almost certainly not due to the mods. The UI elements that have been removed are mostly not due to the mods, but are due to hardcore mode. And the lack of those UI elements does make combat a tiny bit harder and does make the game a little tougher in some ways, but not unplayable. So people saying, oh god, you need to turn them on, otherwise this game will be unplayable. I can't, because I'm playing hardcore mode. And don't worry about it, it's not unplayable. I know I've only posted 13 episodes, 12. I've actually played a lot further, and honestly, I'm thoroughly enjoying the hardcore elements. I'm enjoying the lack of UI elements, and beyond it making it a little more difficult, but in a believable way, I'm not having any problems.